Karen parked in my driveway like she owned it. When I confronted her, she smirked and told me to take it up with the HOA. Then, she went even further, fining me for using my own property, sneaking around at night to stage fake violations, and finally calling 911 to have me removed from my own home. She was so sure she had won, so sure the system would back her up. But Karen didn't know that I had proof, and when the truth came out, she wasn't just embarrassed. She was ruined. But let's start from the beginning. It all started with a piece of paper taped to my front door. At first glance, it looked like one of those generic HOA notices about landscaping violations or garbage bin placement, something I'd normally ignore. But then I read it. Dear homeowner, it has come to the HOA's attention that you are improperly utilizing a shared space for personal use. Please vacate the spot immediately or face further action. Best, Karen Mitchell, HOA President. I read it twice, then a third time. My driveway. My driveway. I had lived in this house for 3 years, parking in my own designated spot every single day. Not once had there been an issue until Karen decided otherwise. Karen, the self-appointed dictator of our HOA, had a reputation. She was the type of person who patrolled the neighborhood with a clipboard, documenting every slightly overgrown lawn, every trash bin left out for more than an hour, every Christmas light still hanging in February. She loved rules, but only when she was the one making them, and she had a special talent for bending them to her will. I figured this was some misunderstanding. Maybe she got the wrong house. So, I knocked on her door, holding the notice in my hand. She opened it with a fake smile, her short blonde bob bouncing as she folded her arms across her chest. "Oh, hi. Did you get my note?" "Yeah, about that, Karen. This isn't a shared space. It's my driveway. I have the deed to prove it." She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, honey, that's what you think. But the HOA recently revised the community guidelines. This area is now considered shared parking for guests and overflow vehicles." I blinked. "That's not how property ownership works." Karen just smirked. "Well, if you have concerns, take it up with the HOA board." Then she shut the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned. This wasn't just an inconvenience, this was a power move. Karen was testing me, seeing if I'd fold. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The next morning, I walked outside to find Karen's SUV parked in my driveway. Not near it, not slightly over the line, smack in the middle. She had done it deliberately. I knocked on her door again. She answered like she had been expecting me, arms crossed, lips pursed in a smug little smile. "Karen, you're parked in my driveway." She barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, I know. I just had a friend coming over, and there wasn't enough space in front of my house. Since this is community property now, I figured it was fine." I clenched my jaw. "Move your car." She smiled sweetly. "Take it up with the HOA." That was it. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. Instead, I did the next best thing. I called a tow truck. 20 minutes later, Karen's car was gone. 5 minutes after that, she was on my porch, furious. "You can't do that," she shrieked. "That's illegal." "Actually, Karen," I said, crossing my arms, "it's very legal. Because unlike you, I have actual ownership of my property. You should really look up property rights sometime." Her face turned red. "You will regret this." She stormed off, and that's when I knew. She wasn't going to let this go. The next morning, I found a $200 fine from the HOA in my mailbox. The violation? Unauthorized use of community property. Karen was weaponizing the HOA against me. I grabbed my property deed, highlighted the relevant sections, and emailed them to the HOA board. But instead of a response, I got another fine. Then, I noticed something strange. Karen was moving my trash cans into my driveway at night. I caught her at 2 a.m., sneaking onto my property, shifting my bins, and taking pictures. She was trying to stage fake violations, so I installed security cameras, and that's when I caught her red-handed. But Karen had one last, desperate move. The next morning, as I pulled into my driveway, I heard sirens. 2 police officers approached as Karen stood nearby, playing the victim. "Officers, thank God you're here," she cried, pointing at me. "He refuses to stop parking illegally on shared HOA property. I feel threatened." One officer turned to me. "Sir, do you have proof this is your property?" Karen smirked, folding her arms like she had already won. I calmly handed the officer my property deed. Then I pulled out my phone. I also have security footage showing Karen trespassing on my property at 2 a.m., staging fake violations and taking pictures to submit to the HOA. Karen's face drained of color. That's a lie," she stammered. The officer raised an eyebrow. "Would you like to see the footage?" Karen panicked. I think we should just drop this." "No, ma'am," the officer said. "You called 911. This is now a legal matter." She tried backpedaling, but it was too late. The officers checked the footage. Then, after a moment of silence, one of them turned to Karen. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious offense." Karen's mouth dropped open. But, the officer wrote her a citation on the spot. I stood there, smiling as she realized she had just humiliated herself. And karma wasn't done with her yet. The security footage of Karen sneaking around at 2 a.m., I may or may not have sent it to our neighborhood Facebook group, and it went viral. The comments were brutal. "So Karen calls the cops for trespassing. While trespassing? Imagine being this entitled. She really thought the HOA was her personal army, huh? And the best part? The HOA board held an emergency meeting. Karen tried to defend herself, but everyone had seen the footage. She was voted out as HOA president by a landslide. She stormed out of the meeting, humiliated, while I sat back, sipping my coffee, enjoying the justice. And me? I'm still parking in my driveway. And Karen? Well, let's just say she learned the hard way that not even the HOA can rewrite property laws.